I wanted to make a gift for a friend, housewarming gift essentially. She's moving into a new apartment and she's wanting to have a theme of strawberries. She loves strawberries, and it was very difficult trying to find potholders that I liked, that I thought would fit well and work well with, that had strawberries on it. So I went to Joann's Fabrics and I found 3 fabrics. Originally, I was going to do the pull-through towel with the band across it, and then I decided that that's not what I was going to do. I mean, I may do something with that a little bit later on. I may make actually some dish towels instead of some hanging hand towels that I can use some of this other fabric with, and it'll look cute together. But I ultimately decided on this strawberry fabric because the potholders are pretty small and these little strawberries fit really well on it. Also, the coloring I thought was really close. So I chose, like I said, this fabric. These buttons are very shiny. I just fell in love with these buttons. They were just really cute. And they do have the 2 holes, which I wanted instead of the, I don't know what they call it, with the little piece that comes on the back that I don't know what they're called. This is what they're called. Anyway, I didn't want those. I wanted flat buttons, and like I said, these shiny ones were just too cute to pass up, and they were nice and large. So I thought that they would work well with the potholder loop. Now, the other thing was, I know that there's a lot of videos out there using dollar store or Dollar Tree or Dollar General potholders and towels. But as a gift, I was not completely comfortable with that. I don't like Dollar Tree or Dollar General towels to dry my hands on. I mean, I suppose any towel you think might be great, but I like nice, big, soft, absorbent towels to dry my hands on. I like to be able to feel the towel in my hand, and I just don't know how I would feel about just giving a nice housewarming gift to somebody using a dollar store towel. So I got these off of Amazon. They're very nice towels. I put the link, this is the link, and I'm going to put the link down below. My dog's going to go on outside here in a minute. I got a rescue puppy. I'll tell you all about that when I get back to finishing my cross-stitch video that I left off on in the middle of the last time I was doing videos. But anyway, these were really nice. They were a great color. And these are actually the dollar store potholders. I did do those because I'm going to cover this with this fabric. I bought 2 of the mainstay ones from Walmart, and as you can see how thick this binding is around this potholder, which you need, you know, really thick potholders when you are touching hot pans. But you don't need really thick potholders when you're going to be making a hanging kitchen towel. So I wouldn't have to go over this thickness and the thickness of the hand towel and the thickness of this. And it almost seemed like, as nice as they were, I could just give her these potholders because they're red. The problem with anytime you buy something like this, and I just hate it, but these holes, you can see the holes from where you take these types of things off. When you cut these off, they leave holes. Even on this mainstay one, this is where the hole was. On these potholders, it's right here, of course, on the back too. Well, actually, this is probably the front, this is the back, and so on the front it even shows even worse, which I just think looks tacky. But anyway, with what I'm doing, it's going to work perfect because it's going to cover up this hole, and then this is going to be on the back. It's not going to matter. But as you can see the difference in the dollar store potholder, which is going to work just fine for this purpose, it's very thin potholder compared to the thickness of this one. What I'm going to do is tear out this binding. So I'm just going to go in here, if I can see it, and start getting these stitches out. So I'm going to have to get it close to me to get it started here, sorry. Okay, so I got the stitch started, the ripping part out. If I can see it, let me get underneath there. Maybe that will start. There it goes, automatically. That's going to be way easier to see it on the inside when you're ripping than on top. So I'm going to rip all the way around. It's tearing the other side out too, so they did both sides at the same time. Usually when you do binding, you do it on one side and then you fold it over. But it looks to me like they did it all in one shot. So once you got it started, it rips out pretty easily. My lighting isn't very good in here either, which doesn't help me any. I've ripped both of the bindings off of the potholders. It really didn't take very long, to be honest. Like I said, once you get started, it just goes really quickly. You might wonder, you know, why go to all of that trouble? If you're going to make these, why don't you just, I don't know, buy the material and buy the batting to put on the inside? And I certainly could have. This served my purpose. I didn't have to do any additional cutting. They're already here. I don't have to try to measure, as I'm going to just stitch right over these stitches, so I don't have to measure when I'm doing the quilting after I get the fabric on. The other thing was the binding. I really don't like doing binding. I don't like cutting binding. I don't like sewing it together. I don't like any of that. And so I bought bias tape, and this is just basically the 1/2 inch wide double fold extra wide bias tape, which I'm going to use in place of, you know, cutting the fabric. What I took off here just, you know, didn't look really great, and the material is just so inexpensive that once you poke the holes through with the sewing machine, as you can see, it just doesn't look very good coming off. The binding sure didn't. I'll show you, you know, this is what the binding looked like coming off, and I just didn't feel like it was something I wanted to reuse. And I found my nice seam ripper after I already ripped out the binding on this one, and so I was able to use it on the second one. I wanted to mention needles because you're going through a lot of fabric. I picked these up at Walmart at the same time I was getting the bias tape. I mean, granted, you don't have a lot of choices if you go to Walmart, but if you're just doing basic colors and you're not too concerned about exact matches, I think Walmart is fine because they're only like a couple bucks a piece. These multi-pack needles specifically for my Brother sewing machine. I get Brother accessories as much as I can if I can find them, and they just happen to have them. And these are a mix of needles, but if you look on the back, you can see sizes. So if you're ever confused, or if you're like me, you're not really, I want to say hip or educated or knowledgeable, I guess is another word I want to use on sewing, because I'm just not. I'm just not a seamstress. I do basic, you know, I'm kind of like if you put the key in the car and you turn it on, you just want to drive the car. And that's kind of how I feel about the sewing machine. So the 100/16 is heavyweight denim, corduroy, and tweed. And so I thought that perhaps that would be the best to use for this thicker, you know, layers of fabric to go through. So it does make a difference on the needles. You think it doesn't. I didn't think it did, but it does, because I've broken needles before on heavier pieces of fabric or going through many thicknesses. So when you're going through that, make sure you get it. So I'm going to use this 100/16. I wanted to mention too, I don't know if I could do a review on this. This is ridiculous. This is a chalk marker that I bought. I think I got it. I don't remember if I got it at Joann's or Walmart. I don't remember. But the chalk, as you can see, is loose in here. It just kind of floats around. This sucks. That's a waste of money. Don't buy that. I use friction pens as much as I can, because they heat erase with an iron, which is perfect. I have a chalk pen. I don't know where it's at the moment, but I did buy these also at Walmart, which these are just Dritz heat erase marking pens. And the only reason why I purchased them, which, you know, if I could have just got the white, I would have just got the white. But it's hard to find white if you're going to mark on something dark. So I'm going to try these out, and we'll see how that goes later. when I was at the dollar store getting these pot holders, which like I said, I'm okay with using, I found these fabrics, and I'm just going to show you these really quick because they were so cute. And after I saw them, I thought, okay, well, I should have just bought some batting and made my own, but I still think this is easier. I don't have to buy backing. I don't have to cut the fabrics. My markings are already there. I'm just going to buy some inexpensive bias tape again and just make some more. And the reason I was going to say is the reason why I'm doing it this way. Number one was the towels. The other thing was you can really customize or personalize your pot holders. So if you have somebody who, I don't know, he's a guy and you think would love, you know, pinup girls or motorcycles or cars, or who knows, he's a bachelor and you just want to make him some of these towels for Christmas, you're his mother or his girlfriend or whatever, and you would just want to make him some. And so you have a much better selection when you are able to buy fabric to make these pot holders the way that I'm making them, than if you're stuck with whatever they happen to have, kind of like you're at the mercy of whatever store you're going to. So if you're going to Walmart, you're still really limited. If you go to the dollar store or the Dollar Tree, again, you're limited on what they have, which sometimes is not a very good variety of pot holder choices. But anyway, this was so cute with the little dogs. I just couldn't resist. I absolutely couldn't resist. And of course, it's now $1.25 store. It's not a dollar store anymore. I guess it's Dollar Tree here. I keep calling it dollar store. But anyway, this was so cute. The deers and the camping, I mean, everything I couldn't resist. So I bought a couple of them. So I'm just going to, I think I'm going to just come up here and then I'm going to put one down below. If you can see it. I was keeping my pins in this Bigfoot mug a friend gave me. The Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult. It's got a little ghost and a Bigfoot on it. You can't beat that. She gave me that for Christmas, I think, one year. And I just use it to keep my extra pins in. So you're going to trace around your pot holder. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just enough to give you a rough estimate on the size of the pot holder that you need, or the size of the material for the pot holder that you need. I mean, if you're trusting, you could do it the other way around, just, you know, double it and trace it, but from experience, they're just different shapes. So I just do it twice. I've got both of them cut out. Now, I've got them mixed up, but we'll see if they fit okay. Sometimes you have to turn them to get them to fit better, or fit the way that you imagine them to fit. And I may have to switch these around. And one side looks better than the other side. I think this side looks better, so I'm going to leave that on the inside and cover up what probably was the back. Going to just do some pins in the corners to hold the fabric in place, so that when I pin on the other side, it's as flat as it can be, because you're going to want it pretty flat. If it's bothering you and it's too wrinkled, you can just iron it if you want to. I didn't iron it. I need to have something to put those in, those pins, that some of them just are dull. I don't know if anybody has some ideas on some pins that are just really, really sharp, a brand or a type of pin. Please put it in the comments below, because I don't know, maybe it's because I don't know, I buy a lot of these at Joann's. It's not like I buy them all at Walmart and find the cheapest pins I can find. I'm going to now flip this over. So I'm going to pin again. I also want to pin in the middle, but I just kind of want to make sure I am still staying flat. It's just an extra step. You know, for me, I need it. If you don't need it, then don't worry about it. And you can pin as much or as little as you want or need. Just because somebody doesn't use a lot of pins, you know, doesn't mean that you don't have to use a lot of pins. I use a lot of pins. It's easier for me to keep things in place. Then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to pull these out because I can't see them on the bottom when I'm stitching, and you don't want to do that and take a chance of breaking a needle. Here's something that I like to do is I like to just kind of run my hands towards these edges, and if I come to a place where I feel like here, like when I sew, this might kind of I don't want to say wrinkle, I don't know, bunch up there, then I'm going to pull this pin out. I'm going to make sure I smooth that out really well, and then I'm going to put the pin back in. I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to recreate the lines on this side. So again, I'm using cream on the bobbin and red on the spool on top. And I'm going to start here in the middle and I'm going to work my way out. And as I go, I'm going to sew this seam, and then I'm going to make sure that as I'm sewing, I'm kind of keeping it as flat as I can. And then I'm going to sew this second seam, and then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to check what it looks like on this side. And every time I sew a seam, I'm going to kind of turn it over and look. Once you get all of the ones across going this way, you're probably pretty good going the opposite direction, but always just turn it over and check. It doesn't take very long. I've sewn the quilting lines on, and I don't worry too much about, you know, what the back looks like. If I go a little bit off, it's not that big of a deal because it's all red on red and it's going to be on the inside anyway. But I think it looks better if you recreate the lines, and it doesn't take that long. These are a little bit of wrinkles. Ironing that will take that right out. I'm not too worried about that, obviously, because it's not bunched up. You'll see when the fabric bunches up, it looks much different. So you can trim off all of your little pieces. I don't go too overboard, but I get most of them. They're going to be tucked under when I put the bias tape on. And I'm not going to recreate the loop. I'm going to make the loop on its own at the end after I get all of the bias tape on. And the reason for that is, if you see, when they sew these on, you gotta, I don't know, I just haven't mastered it. I've tried it in my trial and error session and I just said, screw that. So what I'm going to do is just, since it looks like this anyway, on the front and the back, I'm just going to do a loop and sew it onto the back after I get the binding on. Here is the binding tape. I don't know why they call it tape. Tape I always think is sticky. Why don't they just call it binding? I don't know, or bias binding. I don't know. Anyway, it's just one of those things where I'm thinking, why? Why? It's not very thick. Ooh. That's single fold. Make sure you get double fold and not single fold. And I'm going to show you. I bought one that says single fold right here. Plain as day, single fold. But I think they were probably stuck in the same slot, which, you know, many times if you buy something and then you end up coming home with something you didn't plan on because you didn't look. You just reached on the shelf and you grabbed two of them. So make sure that you read them. Here you see where they have sewn this together. That's how you sew binding strips together when you're doing a quilt or putting binding on anything. But I'm going to cut that off. I'm just going to take my ruler, get me a straight edge. I don't want two of those on my binding, so I'm just going to find my straight edge right here. And I'm going to use my pin, my friction pin, and then I'm going to cut that off. And not use it. So I'm going to open this up. And I'm just going to overlap this a little bit and leave it open. So I'm going to start stitching. It'll just make it easier down the road when we finish off the binding. So I'm just going to leave this loose and I'm going to start stitching right here. And I'm not going to worry about going through all the layers. I don't have any of those clips, which would be great. I may have to get me some because it might be easier when you're going over so much thickness to use those clips, but I don't have them. So use what you have. And these corners are going to be difficult as it is when you're sewing. I mean, do the best you can. I mean, that's all we can do. And in the end, I think it'll look fine. Just go slow when you sew around the corners. At some point, I will get set up with another arm on my, I don't know, it's not a tripod. But whatever holds my iPhone. I don't know what that thing's called. I don't know what's wrong with me. I guess I'm too early in the morning trying to do this. Maybe it's because it's like my 5th time through and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do another video. And I would have started back up with the cross-stitch video that I was doing, but I don't know, life just kind of got in the way. I've been wanting to craft again for such a long time, and I guess what I want to say to people who get busy with life, man, if you don't have some joy, I mean, in your life, it just, life then kind of gets to be a drudgery. I mean, it's just, I don't know, day in and day out, doing what you need to do, kind of you get stuck in maybe that survival mode like I do, and you miss joy. And I mean, my animals give me joy, but some days that's not enough. I mean, and if you have animals that are needy, sometimes it's kind of a hard thing to stay positive with too when you have needy animals. But find joy. And so, like I said, I've been trying to get back into doing these videos. I enjoy doing the videos much more than I thought I would. And like I said, you don't have to go through all the layers, just enough to hold it. So do things that you find joy in. So I decided, you know, I miss crafting. I haven't done anything. I mean, really, I've done a little bit of embroidery, but that's pretty much it. And if you find crafts enjoyable, man, don't let them kind of go by the wayside. So I'm going to try to do more videos. I don't know how many videos I'll get up. I've also been Ubering. I probably have stories for that too later on. But I also am kind of anal with editing. I say a lot. I do this all the time, and I try to edit that out. And so I'm going to do, and sew. See, there's another thing I do. And sew. And I'm sewing. And I try to edit that out too. And I've just decided that I'm going to try to do the videos with a lot less editing. Anyway, I'm going to go all the way around until I get to this side over here. I've got it pinned all the way around. And as you can see, I left quite a bit loose here. And I just did another straight edge here by marking it like I did on this side with my ruler, lining it up. So I'm going to sew from about this point here, and I'm going to stop about here, and I'm going to leave, well, maybe I might stop a little bit sooner, I don't know, but you need to have enough loose. I've sewn all the way around. Some places, of course, look better than others, but when you get it, when you kind of bend it over, you can see that it kind of smooths out a little bit. I'm not too overly worried about it. I should have gone a little bit further, but I didn't. I stopped right here, and then I just did some backtracking at the front and the back. I forgot to mention to make sure that you set your stitch length a little bit longer. I think normally mine's set at like 2.5, and I moved it up to 3 point. And that is because you're going through so many layers of fabric. You could even go a little bit more if you wanted to, like maybe 3.2 if you wanted to try that look. If you look at here, these stitches are definitely shorter than these stitches here. These may have been a 3.5, I don't know. You can use some scrap material and just kind of practice different stitch lengths. It does make a difference when you are stitching over many layers of fabric. Okay, this works fine. Still shows a double fold on one side and a double fold on the other side. I changed my thread again, my bobbin thread to red to match the top thread, because I'm sewing red on red instead of, you know, the cream down here. Now comes the part of joining. And what I'm going to do here is just match my two sides. I mean, you could go try to do the little diagonal thing if you want to, but I'm going to lay my bias tape down here, and I'm going to basically find the place where they meet. I'm going to fold this over. I mean, I've fiddled with this so many times. I guess this is why we watch YouTube videos. We let the idiots like me make all the mistakes and then show you guys how to do it so that you don't make the same mistakes. Say you should fold it and see where the two sides meet. It's probably easier said than done since I have been fiddling with it for so long. And I'm going to temporarily just put a little pin in the back because I can't get it to stay in place. But I can at least get my mark here and know where I need to fold it over. This one, it's going to meet about there. Let's see if I can get that to kind of fold over. It just should be easier than this. That's all I can say. So I would say just about there is where I need to mark these spots. So these are my two spots right here. Need to just finger press this so that I can see where this seam is supposed to go, which is pretty good right there, and I'm going to mark it. Someone else might not have to do those extra steps, but I'm doing the extra steps. And then this side, I'm going to do the same thing. And then I'm getting my stuff all over the place here. And then I'm going to finger press this, which, you know, after you do that, you can see it pretty well. So I'm going to find my straight edge and I'm going to mark it, just so that when I get to the sewing machine, I don't have to try to guess. So I'm going to be placing right sides together, and I'm going to do it like this. Fold this in half so that I know that I'm getting them to match. So I'm going to just place these right sides together, and I'm going to try to match these lines up. But what I do when I end up in this kind of a situation where I don't have an extra piece of fabric laying around to sew on, because if you start with another piece of fabric, you can directly sew onto that much easier. Otherwise, this little piece will get stuck underneath the feed, the foot feed. So to remedy that, what I do is I just start in the middle. If I got a little small piece, so I'll just start here, sew off, and then I'll flip it around and sew here and sew off. And that's why it'll also help if you have a line on both sides, anyway, for me. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that together, and it looks to me like that should stretch out and work pretty good in that center space. But we'll see. I won't trim it off until after I know for sure. And you can just fold this in half, and then it gives you a pretty flat surface to make this line. I've sewed the bias tape together, so I'm going to trim off these extra little pieces. And then I'm going to make sure that it goes around here like it should. So if this was technically trimmed and folded out, and it folded over, and then this is what we got for the binding. I was trying to, I think, overthink it and make it more difficult maybe than it needed to be. Originally I thought, oh, I'll just sew those two pieces together. But then I got stuck in my head that I thought I was supposed to do it the, you know, the traditional way, because this was way easier. If I'd have done that, I'd been done with this 3 days ago. So it looks to me like it's going to meet pretty well, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to trim this off to within about 1/4 of an inch, something like that. And then I just need to finish sewing this 1/4 of an inch seam to where they meet up. But that worked pretty well. One little trick that I saw, and if I can find the video, I will post a link for it below, but it was a video on YouTube where a lady used Elmer's glue. If I can get this thing, it's so old. Yep, it's starting to work. So she used Elmer's glue as a basting tool. Especially for something that's really thick like this to hold it in place. Well, I'm going to try it. The other thing about Elmer's glue is it's washable. So the first time they wash it, the glue will wash out. But she just put a little bit of glue along the inside of her project. And this is the method that she used. I'm always a little concerned about my iron, so I'm not putting a whole lot there, but just enough to maybe hold it. We're going to try this and see if this works. But that's way easier than penning. But I'm going to fold this over and melt the glue to hold it in place. Now where I've pulled it up, it's not going to stick very good, obviously. Stitch in the ditch right in between the red color and the cream color all the way around, and hopefully we'll catch it on the back. I'm going to take off as many of these little pieces as I can. I mean, this doesn't look really good. If I'd have been a little bit better on making sure that I measured maybe the sides, it would have looked better, but at least I caught all the edges. I may take some fabric glue and just glue maybe some of these edges that didn't turn out quite as great so that they lay a little bit better. I mean, it's definitely not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but this side doesn't look too bad considering that it's me. Maybe for my first one, and we'll see if I do better on the second one, maybe. We just need to know where to fold the towel and to get our thirds. And I like towels. When I fold towels and I hang them over my kitchen stove, I literally fold them like this so that they lay flat against the stove. For the center spot, it is 27 inches, so half of 27 is 13.5. I'm going to mark that spot here. This is 13.5 inches. Maybe I'm going to mark that spot. There's 13.5 inches. And I pulled all of them out, and that's not what I was wanting to do. 13.5. I'm going to measure up from this side so that I get it pretty good here on the corner, so that when I have it marked that I can match up to my pot holder. I mean, not perfect, of course, but close enough. 13.5 inches, right about here. So that's the center. And then my pot holder was about 7 inches, and so I originally tried to do it just on the inside, thinking I was going to leave the outsides open, but then I decided I didn't like the look of that, so I changed it. The halfway mark, which is 3.5 inches, because it was 7 across, and as you can see, it matches up pretty good on the sides, which I like much better. I'm just going to match it with this side with the pin, and I'm going to match with this side with the pin, like that. Then I'm going to take this one out, and I'm going to just place it here to hold it in place. Same with this one. I don't need all these pins anymore, so I'm going to reuse them. The right sides are facing up on the towel, and the pot holder will be also facing the right side. You can turn it over and look and see if you think you're going to like, where it's ending up on on your pot holder. But I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew that right down the middle. Alright, so here we go at this stage of the game. And so that's what the towel looks like after it's sewn on, which is, you know, kind of what it's supposed to look like. I mean, would it look a little bit neater if somebody else sewed it? Hell, I'm sure probably would. But, you know, it's me. Alright, so this is the front. Can I get that a little bit straight? And this is the back, and it will then have this pretty little button sewed on to hold the towel in place. I actually found one of my embroidery needles, and when I do a lot of embroidery on tea towels and bag, I use a pretty big needle with a really large eye. And the reason why is because, you know, my hands, for one thing, with the big needle, but the really large eye is nice. I don't know if you can see that, if it'll zoom in on that or not, but I can get my size 5 thread through it with, of course I use a needle threader, but it needs to be big enough to take that size of thread. Cut a piece of the red thread, and you don't need very much, but I checked it, it'll go through this large hole, so I was okay with that. It was handy. I'm going to try to hang on to both ends of this thread. Because you're going to want to double your thread, you'll have a stronger support for your button. I lick my finger, go around, if it doesn't get caught on the splits on your dry thumb, and then I roll it, wrap it around my finger, and I roll it, and then I pull it tight. And that's all the knot really that you need on fabric. I'm going to cut that little piece off. Okay. Again, we're going to go at the 3.5 inch mark, but we're going to go with the 3.5 again. About this, see, after it's done, all said and done, it's a little bit larger than 7 inches, but that's okay. But I'm going to mark it right about here, and I'm just going to kind of half judge going up. It's good enough for me. And then so I know right about here is where I want my button. I'm going to not want the knot on the back. I don't care if the thread goes through to the back, but I don't really want the knot on the back. So I'm going to come up, and it's off to the side, maybe I don't know, 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to come to the side about 1/8 of an inch over and come up, and that's where I'm going to put my button on. So I'm just going to go through that right side because I came to the right side and go through my buttonhole. And then I'm going to maybe try to line it up so that the buttonhole is straight, the button is straight, and then I'm just going to go straight through. I mean, you don't have to. Some people don't because they don't want that on the back, but you know, it's the flipping back. And then once you get your first one going, you can get it pretty good. How many times you do this, I don't know. Several. I just do it till I get to the point where I feel like I've got it on there and it's secure. Oh, I didn't pull tight. There we go. I have a thimble somewhere, but I've never really used them, but I may have to if I make a bunch of these. But I'm going to do it a couple more times, and then I'm going to call it good because I think it's on there. And then I'm just going to come back up back behind this button. And then I'm going to just go through and knot it. And then I'm going to do that a few more times just to make sure it's secure. Go through my thread, secure it back behind there. I'm going to do it one more time just to make sure I get a good knot. Go through the loop, pull it tight. All right, there we go. So our button's on, and there's our loop, and when we pull it tight, it should lay pretty good, I hope, on there like that. I would cut this little strip about probably 5 inches. You could even go 6 inches. You only really need about 4 inches of your loop to have it work on the back of your potholder. So that would be my suggestion, to do it that way. And then you're going to just sew it on the back side. It's easier because the longer piece you have here, it's easier to hang on to get it to feed it through your machine. Otherwise, it's going to keep catching it, and even then, it still does to some degree. But you know, it's just easier that way. Then you can trim off what you don't need, and then you're going to loop this onto the back of your potholder, and then you're just going to sew right here in the same seam that's been here that you did previously, and sew right across both of these pieces of both of these ends. I'll be back. And there you have it. It should flip right around and go right around that big old button and hold it in place. There you go. Cute. Was it worth it? I don't know. 4 days later and still working on the same project. I don't know. I need to get my iron and get rid of this ink mark. But I think the fact that I could not find a nice towel that I liked, considering the fact that I could not find a potholder that was strawberries that I thought would work, inexpensive enough and thin enough to do what I wanted to do. Now that I've done it once, and I know that I can do it again, probably through the trial and error, I know what to do and what not to do. Could things be a little bit more perfect or look better? Sure. But for my first time through on something I had nothing to really match it to with what I was doing, I think I'm okay with. So anyway, I did buy some, I showed you the other fabric before, but I bought this Waverly fabric at Walmart, this black and gray. But I also bought some gray bias tape, God help me, and some black potholders from the dollar store. And then I'm going to get some gray, light gray towels and make my son and daughter-in-law a towel set. Black and gray are the colors in their kitchen. I may show you what they look like when I'm done with them, but I am not going to film them. That's for sure. Anyway, until next time, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, like, tell me everything that you would have done differently. I know I got so much crap on my craft table. Well, it's not my craft table, it's my dining room table. No, Evie, go lay down. Go on, go on, go on. Evie, no, sweetie, you can't come up here. Okay, so here we go. Here's my little dog. I don't know whether you can see her or not. She's my little dog, my little rescue puppy. I don't know whether she's going to look up in the camera. Probably not. Come here, Evie, look up, look up, look up. See? Anyway, she's my little rescue dog that I got. And I'll talk, like I said, about her later, but in one of my other videos. But she's my little sweetheart. Just my little sweetheart. And she wants attention all the time. She just can't get enough of it. No, you can't get enough of it. You got to go down. Go on. Go lay down somewhere. If I had a little bed on the table, she'd lay on the table, I think. Wouldn't you, babies? Wouldn't you? No. Why don't you go lay down? I know you want held. I can't hold you and do this at the same time. I can't.